If you stood in Moscow in the summer of 1572, you would still smell the ash. Just 1 year earlier, the Crimean Khanate, the most powerful remnant of the mighty Mongol Empire, had swept through the Russian capital. They burned the city to the ground, massacred tens of thousands, and dragged 80,000 Russians away in chains to be sold in the slave markets of the Black Sea. Now, the dust is rising on the southern horizon once again. Khan Devlet Giray has returned, but this time he hasn't come for slaves or tribute. Backed by the wealth of the steppe, he has brought 120,000 elite horsemen. His mission is absolute. He intends to wipe the state of Muscovy off the map, kill Ivan the Terrible, and permanently restore the Mongol yoke over Eastern Europe. The army marching on Russia is a terrifying military machine. The Crimean Tatars are masters of steppe warfare. They live in the saddle, capable of covering massive distances and firing deadly volleys of arrows at a full, blinding gallop. Standing in their way is a single Russian army, commanded by Prince Mikhail Vorotinsky. The historical numbers are grim. Vorotinsky has managed to scrape together just 25,000 men, a desperate mix of professional Streltsy musketeers, Cossack mercenaries, and peasant militia. It is 5-1. In an open field, the Mongol envelopment tactics would surround the Russians in less than an hour. Vorotinsky knows this. If he fights a traditional war, Russia dies. So, he makes a decision of pure tactical genius. He will deny the Horde the one thing their cavalry needs to survive: open space. In absolute secrecy, Russian carpenters had been constructing a revolutionary weapon of war. They called it the Devlet Giray, the walking city. Historically, this was a massive, modular, mobile fortress. It consisted of heavy wooden shields, over 3 meters high, mounted on wheels and sleds. When chained together, they formed an impenetrable wall spanning nearly a kilometer. The thick timber was designed to absorb tens of thousands of arrows, while narrow loopholes allowed Russian musketeers and light cannons to fire with complete protection. But a stationary fortress is useless against nomads. They can simply ride around it. Vorotinsky had to lure the 120,000-man horde into a trap. He chose the battlefield with surgical precision, a narrow stretch of land near the village of Molodi, 60 kilometers south of Moscow. His flanks were protected by dense, impassable forests and the steep banks of the Pokra River. There was only one way forward. On July 28, 1572, the trap is set. Vorotinsky sends a small vanguard of Russian cavalry forward to strike the massive advancing horde. It is a suicide mission. The Russians fire a chaotic volley and instantly turn their horses, feigning a panicked, desperate retreat. The Khan takes the bait. Believing the Russian lines are already breaking, thousands of elite Tartar riders urge their horses into a frenzied gallop, hunting the fleeing cavalry. The Russians sprint toward the rolling hills of Molodi. They slip through the heavy wooden gates of the Devlet Giray. The moment they're inside, the heavy timber doors slam shut. The pursuing Tartars suddenly realize they are packed tightly together in a narrow valley, staring at a solid wooden wall. The walking city erupts. Hundreds of hidden loopholes spit smoke, lead, and fire. The roar of Russian musketry and falconet cannons echoes through the valley. The entire front line of the Mongol vanguard is vaporized at point-blank range. Khan Devlet Giray is furious. His pride will not let him back down. He orders a massive, all-out frontal assault. The earth shakes as tens of thousands of horsemen charge the wooden walls. They unleash a storm of arrows so thick it blocks out the sun. But the historical accounts are clear. The arrows thud uselessly into the reinforced wood. Inside the fortress, the Russian Streltsy systematically reload and fire. They are untouchable. Wave after wave of the Khan's elite riders crashes against the Devlet Giray, only to be shredded by continuous musket fire. By nightfall, the valley is a graveyard of horses and men. The Russians have barely taken a casualty. For 3 agonizing days, the slaughter continues. The Khan brings up his heavy siege cannons, pounding the wooden shields until they splinter. The fighting devolves into savage, desperate hand-to-hand combat. Tatar warriors dismount and try to tear the walls down with their bare hands, while Russian defenders stab downward with pikes and bayonets. The defenders are exhausted, water is running out, the walls are groaning under the sheer weight of the horde. But Prince Vorotinsky is waiting for the perfect moment. By August 2nd, the Khan commits his entire force to a final, massive assault on the front of the walls. The horde is completely focused on the wood. They do not see the shadows moving in the forest. Under the cover of the dense woods, Vorotinsky personally leads a hidden detachment of Russian cavalry out the back of the fortress. They move silently, circling in a wide arc until they are entirely behind the massive, distracted horde. Suddenly, the tree line explodes. The Russian cavalry screams a war cry and smashes violently into the unprotected rear of the Mongol army. The psychological shock is catastrophic. At that exact second, the heavy gates of the Gulyai Gorod swing open. The surviving Russian infantry pours out, charging straight into the face of the enemy. Caught in a devastating pincer movement, the invincible Crimean horde completely shatters. Panic sweeps through the ranks. The 120,000-man army breaks formation, abandoning their weapons and fleeing for their lives. It is no longer a battle, it is a slaughter. The Russians hunt the fleeing army all the way to the steppes. Of the 120,000 warriors who marched to burn Moscow, barely 20,000 survived the retreat. The Khan's elite guard is annihilated. The Battle of Molodi remains one of the most brilliant and brutal tactical traps in military history. In a single week, 25,000 men inside a wooden wall didn't just win a battle, they permanently ended centuries of Mongol terror, secured the survival of Russia, and changed the map of the world forever.